Hi, I'm Gary and welcome to my dry dock. This is where I'll be making modifications on my Lifetime Tamarack Angler kayak. It's a 10-foot long version. And stay tuned and I'll show you how I make my modifications as I go here. Okay, this is my kayak, kind of stock, and I'm going to be making some modifications to it here to add some things on: anchor trolley, anchor gearboxes and so forth, and a fish finder, and who knows what else in the future I'll be adding to it. So one of the first modifications, of course, I made was adding this leash, so to speak, for the lid on both of the lids on this, to keep them from falling off, getting lost. I just used a, I think it's a 3/16 or 1/4 inch nylon rope. It has some like slots where you can snap things into here and also in here. And what I did was to add some hot glue to it to help it stay in place on both points. Okay, so one of the modifications that I made first here is to put in these plugs in these scupper holes here. Just pull them out, just press them in. It helps keeping water out, but they do provide an equilibrium sometimes when you do get a lot of water in this area here. Now, this area is going to be the lowest part, lowest level of the kayak at these plugs. So I wanted to keep plugs in here that had strings on them so I could pop these out when I need to. You know, getting in and out of the kayak and stuff like that, handling fish, whatever, you're going to get water up here. So I'm going to want to pull those sometimes and let the water kind of drain and equalize itself out. Now back here by the seat, there's two scupper holes on each side here of the seat, and they're at a higher level than the other ones. And what I did with these, I'm not worried about pulling these out as much. Got these soft golf balls from Walmart, and they just squeeze right in there, and they seal pretty good. Now when you buy these other scupper plugs like those blue ones, they usually come in sets of 4. So I've got another set back here. Now, something else with this seat here that concerned me is when this is down and trying to secure it in place down. Well, I've got this on top of my car and traveling down the freeway at like 70 or 80 miles an hour. I want to make sure it stays in place well. What this provides for is you got these straps, you can just pop them off easily. Then this clip here allows you to remove this back seat altogether, put it in your car with all the rest of your gear, so you can load it up when you're finally at the lake. Okay, something else I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be mounting some electronics, such as a fish finder here, and I wanted to locate it in such a spot and manner that it's easily for me to see from my seated position, and it won't get in the way of my paddling or casting with my fishing poles. So I think I came across this as being the best location. You can also locate it on these side gunnels and stuff, but I was afraid that that's going to be kind of in the way of the paddle. So I think this is the best location, and I've seen some others do it in this location here too. This cup holder hole here is just way too close. It'd be really hard to see and work with. Besides that, I need somewhere to put my wine glass or my water bottle. I had to look at the idea of wiring this up underneath this hole or this hatch. Got all the space down here. I got a 12-volt battery, and I put on some hook and loop tape on here, which will securely hold in the hull there. The other side is like the same kind of thing, hook and loop, versus a Velcro. This holds a lot stronger, 3 times as strong as Velcro does. So that's pretty easy to, you know, kind of get it out of there. Just fasten it in, it stays in there great, stay in position. As you can see here, I've got my battery inside the hull down there, and it's fastened in place with a couple of hook and loop strips to keep it in place. Then found out that this plug here, that unscrews. Then I found this Hobie through-hole wiring kit, and it comes with a couple of these knobs here. It's about a 1-inch hole or something that you drill through your hull on a fairly flat surface if you want to put this through somewhere where there's not already an existing hole that you can use. And then it comes with all these different fittings. They're little rubber things that can fit the wires through to give you a good secure fit to try and keep it waterproof. And those fit into this, and one piece on each side of the hull here with this rubber O-ring, so to speak. Tighten that up, that gives you a good, nice waterproof fit. I found the one for me for this particular Hobie, and also the Striker 4 fish finder that I'm using. I use this one from this prong here, so I don't know how you put that. This one here has like no holes in it. This one has holes, so if you hold this in that orientation for the Striker 4, this is the one that fit. And a nice thing about it too is that this Hobie through plug here has the same thread size as what's in my Kayak here, so that just screws right in, and I can tighten it down. And I'll put this ring on the bottom side too, just to make it stronger. That way my wire can come up to my fish finder and keep me good and tight. So that's a really great fit. Previously, what I had looked at doing was trying to mount this onto here somehow with these sloped parts and so forth. And I was a bit nervous that it might not be real secure. Then this mounts onto there, to mount like that. But I kept debating this, and I wanted to build like some sort of a platform here to secure better, and then this could secure onto that. And I thought that would be a stronger mount that way. But finding these Scotty mounts solves that problem for me. And I happened to come across these Scotty mount parts at my local Gander Mountain, which is going out of business. And these were the last parts that they had, which happened to be a perfect setup for what I needed for installing my fish finder on this. So I got a track, I got a fish finder mount, and a gearhead track adapter that this will fit into, this will fit onto the track. Well, it's just kind of an overview of how I'm going to install this here. Basically, I'm going to attach this track on here, try to keep it as level as I can. Maybe I'll have to use a board or something to apply some pressure here as I mark the holes and drill them so it stays level. Once I got that installed, then the Scotty track gearhead adapter slides right in there like that. Tighten it down, it'll tighten onto there. Then this head will go on, and then the fish finder mount will attach onto this. So this goes into like that, kind of snaps in place and stays. This will be bolted onto the adapter plate. Just a little bit of a turn with this, and this pops back out again, so it's quick and easy. Now with this, I found that I've got these 3 holes on this mounting plate, which mounts my fish finder, and these holes match up with these 3 that I've got marked in white, so that'll be like a perfect deal. I don't have to do any extra drilling or anything. And the screws I'm using for attaching the mounting plates together is some number 8 by 32 5/8 inches long, and they're stainless steel, and then matching elastic stop nuts, so you don't have to use lock nuts or anything like that, since this plastic materials won't apply too much pressure, but you want it to stay tight. Number 8 by 32 elastic stop nuts to hold the 3 screws in place once they're on there. Once you get all this connected, my fish finder will sit here like this. It looks a bit high, but I guess I'll see how this works, and whether or not there's any way of lowering that. I'd have to replace this piece here to make it shorter, I'm sure, but I'll have to see. The question is whether or not it's in the way of my paddle. If it does, I can always, undo this, slide it out, set that aside somewhere so it's not standing up as tall. Next step, basically all that's done, is to get this track piece riveted into place here. And what I'm going to use is some of these pop rivets that I bought that are rubberized or whatever for sealing in the water and stuff, and these fit in there pretty good, so that's going to work great. All I have to do is mark and drill my holes. Well, when I was trying to pop rivet this in place, the pop rivets pulled through because this surface is curved here. And when you're doing pop rivets on surfaces, you need to have 2 very flat surfaces together and no gaps in there. Otherwise the pop rivets are just going to pull through if you got a soft material here. So I'm going to look at another method of fastening this track in here with some stainless steel screws. So I picked up these stainless steel screws, nuts, and washers for mounting this plate in there. These screws fit pretty good into that, and they'll protrude far enough down where I can get the washers and the nuts on the bottom side. These screws fit pretty well in these holes that I've already made. They're snug. I just have to turn them a little bit to get them to go in. So that'll make for a good seal, as I'll add a little bit of this clear silicone seal, and that'll seal up all the holes. I got 8 holes to do here. I bought enough of these screws and nuts, enough packages. Like these are 3, so I had to buy 3 packages. So I'll have 8 screws, 2 packages of these because they're 4, so that'll give me 8 nuts. And this packet of washers come 12 of them in the package, so that'll be enough to fasten this all down. I have fastened this mounting track here with screws that I want to be using, and I put them into the 4 screws I drilled already, hold this in place. Then I'll drill the other 4 holes here for the rest of the screws. Now I have this plate on here. I've got all the screws set in place just to test the fit, make sure everything's lining up correctly. What I will do next is to pull this off, use some of that silicone seal on each of those holes for sealing. Then I'll put a little bit of sealant on the screws themselves from the back side of the plate here. Fasten it back down, then I'll access the hatch cover over here so I can reach underneath, put the washers and the nuts on the bottom side while I tighten these up. I'll apply some of this silicone seal to each of these holes. This comes out white, but it says it dries clear. Also, what I'm going to do is apply a little bit of this to the undersides of these screws here so they can try and seal up a bit. A little bit of dab on there. This stuff does give you a little bit of time to work with here. That's kind of like the woodworking stuff. Glue time gives you sometimes gives you time to set up. Some are longer open times than others, and just kind of have to work with it. Try and make sure I get good coverage here. Okay, then what I'm going to do is get these set into the holes, work them in there. Some of them can push in there pretty easily. Others I got kind of screwed a little bit. Okay, got those all fastened in there. Next I'll put the washers on the bottom side and the nuts, and then tighten them up with the screwdriver here as I'm holding from underneath. I got the washers and nuts started on the bottoms of each of these screws here. Unfortunately, I can't get my camera down there to be able to show you how that looks from underneath there. But I can tell that the silicone seal is working well. Got it all over my hand as I was putting the nuts in. I can see a little bit of it squeezing out there at each of the holes where the screws go into, so that'll be good. Next, I take a 3/8 inch wrench that fits the nuts that are on the screws, and I'll hold the nuts in place with this while I tighten up the screws with the screwdriver. I want to just snug these. I don't want to get it too tight because I don't want to be pulling or misforming this part of the kayak body. So I just want to get them good and snug. Okay, now I can put my gear head in the track here. Slide that into position. And just tighten it down. Then I can put my mount on there. I can slide my fish finder onto there. All in place, ready to go. Adjust it to however I need to see it. As I mentioned before, if this is too high, when I want to paddle around, one way of doing this is I can take this, push this down, and that slides off. Another one to get it even further down is twist this down here, and this pops out, and that makes my mount even lower, more out of the way. So, that's my fish finder mount, all set to go. Now for mounting my transducer, I bought this kit that you can use. It sticks into the bottom of the hull there, nice flat spot, and my transducer will mount into that. I have to give it 24 hours here to set, but that material, peel off the sticky back, it's very, very sticky, so I think that's going to hold in there very well. Now back here at the back hatch, back of the kayak, this is where my transducer is going to get mounted into that mounting pad down there. So I put this here in the cord. I just kind of coiled it up and gave it a toss up underneath the hull there, and it got close enough over there where I was able to reach in and grab it and pull it through. Now this is where I was able to pull the cord through for the transducer. Also, I've got my power cord here to the fish finder, plugged it in there, got this grommet that's going to go in that plug, and the power cord comes through here. Now, what I want to do is feed this wire through, get these so they don't tangle up too much, up through here, and I want to connect it so I can get a good judgment as to what my length should be. What I might do is take a zip tie and kind of tie these together here to help secure them better so they don't flop around too much. Well, I sat here and worked and experimented with trying to get this Hobie through hull adapter to fit through here because it threads into there perfectly, but having a lot of difficulty to get it to stay as it should, is working this grommet up into position as it's supposed to be. Proved to be quite difficult from doing it from the underside. Also, from the underside, there's a lot of rough surface underneath there. I tried to trim it up with a knife and a razor to try and get this, flush and even like the top is, but it just seems to be proving to be impossible to do so. And when I try to thread this knob on the bottom there to lock it in, it keeps losing its grip on the threads. Whereas when I do wind it up all the way, it does hold very securely, as long as you've got good solid and flat surfaces that you're mating up with. So I'm going to skip this for here. Just leave the normal plug in here, which kind of like gives you an eyelet, which I believe is for like maybe a paddle leash or something, or whatever you want to leash. And I'm going to relocate this through haul plug up further, which will be behind my fish finder, which up in this area here, I find it to be fairly flat because you want a good flat surface to mount this into. So I found this to be fairly flat here, both directions. So this will be a good place to put this. And it's still within reach from that hatch hole, so I can feed the wires up through this. And I'll have a good clean surface underneath there for fastening all this together and getting a good watertight seal. That'll be the best way to go. So what I will have to do is to drill a 1-inch hole here for putting that Hobie through haul connector in there. So I'm going to locate it fairly close and even here so I have a good location and I can get a seal all the way around it. Okay, this seems to be a good position. Yeah, I'll clean that up a little bit underneath there. As you go through, you get a little bit of kind of what we call a tear out, but it's easy to clean up, and then I can get a good tight seal with that. So I have a good tight seal with this. Fits in there snugly. The grommet fits in. This is where the wires will feed through these holes here to make it watertight. Then I'll get the nut tightened on the bottom side and feed the wires up to my fish finder. Okay, I have my wires fed up through this hole for the fish finder. Next, I will put this grommet on. One wire is thicker than the other. The one to the transducer is a thicker wire. Thicker wire goes in the back hole. Thinner wire goes in the front hole. Keep them aligned in there until I can get all this installed, and I'll extend these lines out longer to reach my fish finder. And as I get this installed in there, this will go like this. The wire's lined up correctly so this can all fit together correctly. A little bit of a trick to try and finesse all this, but I'll kind of show you in the end what it looks like here. So I was able to get this fastened in here, the wires through, grommet in place to make it watertight, and then to feed up to my fish finder. As you can see here how it feeds into the back of my fish finder, and I can move it around and do what I need to do. I may add some zip ties to here, but not real sure about doing that because if I take this off at this joint down here, the zip ties will be connected and that may not be what I want. So that's something I'll experiment with. I don't want to have these dangling too much and out of control or where I can get tangled in my foot. I will see. Okay, to tie up these wires here so they won't be dangling loose, especially going down the freeway. So I took some of this Velcro straps you can get from Home Depot. Relatively cheap. They come in a roll like this and you take off what you need. And use those on here to tie these on. And then when I want to get these loose, so I can connect them to my fish finder, just do like that. And when I'm ready to go on the highway, just wrap it back on there like that. Holds very well. Actually, I've used these straps for tying up the loose ends of my ropes and my straps of my kayak on my rooftop. And going 70-80 miles an hour, these hold the loose ends together very well. Okay, as I mentioned before, this back of the seat comes off. Taking these straps off and snapping it out of place here. And I found out there's another good seat that works very well. I've tried a couple different stadium seats in this, but they were still kind of like straps. When you lean back on this, these straps have some give to them, so they really don't give you a heck of a lot of back support. And I tried a few other stadium seats and they kind of had straps, or they had the joints where the seat and the back meet up were like plastic and they wouldn't hold very strong, especially with my weight. They're not going to hold, so I needed joints that are made out of metal. Now, I saw this video on YouTube from Mobin Outdoors, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'll put the link below and in the description below. And he had a great idea on this stadium seat, as I'll put up here so you can see that. And now he got his for like $15 at Costco. I found pretty much exactly the same thing. It was probably about double that price on Amazon.com, but at least I was able to pick the color I wanted, and I kind of like green, so that works well with me. What I did, instead of hooking a strap back here to hold this seat in place, put a couple of J-hooks in here right behind the seat, also so it wouldn't interfere with the operation of this back. And the bottom of this seat has like these hard rubber guides, so that helps hold it in place and also prevents it from scratching or damaging the parts of your kayak at all. So, I've got one hooked over here. Kind of pass it under the strap from the original seat backs. Hook it back over here into the other J-hook. Kind of get it positioned evenly. And that holds it pretty well. So, I haven't been out on the lake yet to try it out, but that'll be the next thing I'm going to be doing. So this works great. It's a great idea from Mobin Outdoors, and looks like it's going to work pretty well. Another great idea that Mobin Outdoors had was to attach like a parts tray here on top of this hatch cover with some hook and loop fastener. So this is the hook and loop fastener, and it's 3 times stronger than the Velcro. Holds up to 10 pounds, so that'll hold this pretty good. That's the same thing that he was using too. So I'll attach some of this onto the top of that, onto the base of this. Now this is actually an organizer tray from Walmart in the office supplied area for about $2 or $3. And it's got all the holes in here so you can loop your tie downs or something like that for your wrenches on there. Now with the width of these hooks and loops, they fit in there pretty well. I just need to trim off the corners here so it'll sit flatly in there. So that's what I did with a pair of scissors. I just trimmed off the corners a little bit so it sits right in there. Then I trimmed the upper one the same way. That's going to go on the bottom of the tray so it can kind of meet in there and get it fully seated in there. Just remembering your orientation will be like this when I do it. Or I could do it like this. I'll just have to remember which way I'm doing it. I think I'll go this direction. So I have to set it on there like this and then center it on there when I set on there so it lines up correctly. So let's peel these off and stick them on. Make sure the surface is fairly clean. Press it on well. Now I'm going to give these some time to set up, perhaps a day before I try putting them together and pulling them apart. So then I'll get this one centered on there. So I'm going to put this on crossways and about center here. Got a little bit of an outline of a circle there so you can kind of see where your center is at. Let's press that on. We'll give it about a day to set up. Then what I'll do is to line it up about center. It'll lock in pretty good. So, but I want to give these time to set up here first. So another good tip from Mobin Outdoors channel, and I'll put the links below for his channel. Okay, so on the back side here behind the seat, everybody puts in a milk crate to hold all their fishing supplies. And I looked at getting a regular milk crate, sticking it on here, using these bungees here into some S-hooks to hold the cart in place, and then kind of the same on the back side to hold the back end down. Bought 2 of these and entertained the idea of cutting off the other one to make a tray on top and make it so it hinges, like there's been so many videos on doing that. Great idea, but still got a lot of space back here, and I thought I'd like to go for the larger milk crates. So I found this milk crate on Amazon. It's a 19 by 13 by 11, so it's 19 inches long, and will fill up the space a lot better. So I did that. Brought that up. Used these S-hooks, and I just kind of put them inside this handle opening here. Then I can take these straps, put them on here, hold it in. Same on the back, except this lines up a lot better in the back here than the shorter crate does, so it gets a good fulfillment. Also, I still got enough room back here to hang my dolly cart on when I'm out on the water. Then, with that, I can fit a lot of gear in here, including a big tackle bag. I gotta crimp these S-hooks on so that doesn't happen. So my big tackle bag fits inside this milk crate pretty good. That'll be great. Then, I bought 2 of these, so I may make a lid out of the other one. I don't know yet. But apart from that, I can put these bungee corders corner to corner here. That'll hold my gear in if I flip over. Hopefully I won't. So I did that. I decided to change how I'm going to attach this crate in here instead of using those S-hooks there. They were stainless steel, but they keep kind of flopping and falling out of place. Very hard to get in there and try and squeeze them and crimp them in there so they stay. So instead I decided to put these J-hooks on here, and I riveted these onto the crate. And this will work perfectly well, and I don't have to worry about it coming loose. This will hold my crate pretty good. Then the same thing as this on the back side here too. Okay, now something else I did, this is the back corner of my crate that will normally be positioned over here, is I bought this Kayak safety flag. And it's also got blinking light on the top. You can stay on steady, blink, rapid blinks, and some other irregular pattern, then other irregular pattern, then it's off and back to the steady light again. What I did is I put a couple of Velcro straps. I drilled out some holes here at about 3/4 inch on the sides of the crate to feed these Velcro straps through and get the fit all the way down there. Tight, feed it around and get the Velcro to hold very well. It holds really great. It holds this flag in position really well. Okay, so you can see how I got these Velcro straps in the holes. I only had to drill holes in this top part. This one was open already. And these are just these cheap Velcro straps you can get in a kind of a rounded bundle at Home Depot for a pretty good price. That holds it in there very well, because I looked at trying to mount that into the gunnel of this, but I couldn't find any spots that were really good and flat so the flag would not be tilted very much. Finally, I figured out this idea, and that works perfectly, and it's pretty much out of the way. Does this job just great. I am making this saddle for my kayak anchor, and this is a 3-inch PVC pipe, and a 3 inches the inside diameter of the pipe. So I cut off a piece of this. This is a piece of scrap I happen to have around the shop. I do a lot of woodworking, so I've got a lot of materials left over from various projects that I do. Then I put a cap on the end of that. I used the PVC glue and just glued that on there. And before I put the cap on though, I did drill some 3/8 inch holes in the bottom of that cap, so that'll provide drainage from the anchor. So I got this primer. It's good for plastic. I sanded this down, got that glued together, sanded it down, sprayed it down with some primer, and then all I'll do is paint this kind of a hunter green to go with more of the color scheme that I'm going for with my kayak. So now I have my anchor holder or saddle painted in this dark, like forest green. It's a spray paint for plastics and metals and everything else. I will get this mounted to my crate. Now my anchor holster I'm going to put on the right side of my crate, so when I twist around to it, I'm twisting around to my right side. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to put my anchor trolley on the right side of my kayak. The reason I'm putting that on the right side of my kayak is because when I put my kayak on the roof of my car in the kayak racks, it's sitting on the left side of the kayak, so I can't put my anchor trolley on the left side. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put this so it sits on this bottom ledge here and then butts up against that. Then that will allow me to line up with these holes, be able to put the zip ties through. So that'll line up there. Then I'll fasten this in place with these zip ties. Actually, I'm going to pass through one a little bit lower here. I'm going to try and locate these around to the side here where they're going to be less obscure and not in the way. Then I'll tighten them up. Okay, now I've got my anchor saddle here, so I can turn around and just wiggle that in and it slides right in. Then I attach this crate here is one of these mini milk crates to hold all my anchor line and so forth and a float. And I just attached this to the corner here. I attached this little milk crate here to hold all this stuff to the corner of this milk crate with just a Velcro strap so it goes around and gets out of the way of my seat. Okay, so on my Lifetime Tamarack Kayak here, I installed this anchor trolley. It's from Kayak, and it's the lever lock system, which I really like. Glad I bought this instead of the one they had on Amazon, because one on Amazon is yesteryear's model. Got this on here. It comes with two of these guides here. The line passes through the upper part, and then it's got a thing here to catch the line on the bottom side. On this kayak, I had to locate it just below this line in order to get a flat mount with the lever lock. And it comes with four of these guides, front and back. And what I did to locate these evenly is I measured from the end of the pulley to the center of the lever lock, and I took that measurement, divided by 3, and that told me where to locate these two guides at. Then I did the same on the back side also. Because of where I put this lever lock, I put it by my handle for an easy reference when I'm out there. I know that's where my lever lock is going to be at. Now here's another angle to see it at. See how I've got my line and go all the way up to the front. Put my lock, stays in place, doesn't move. Unlock it, move it to where I want. Then when you get centered here, it snaps in place, stay in place. I've got it set up so my anchor line here, my anchor can come through this ring, and that'll kind of keep my anchor in position one way or the other. Then on top here, I learned this knot from this guy called Kayak Hacks, and I'll kind of put his on the website there. You tie this knot like this, bring this loop through, kind of tighten this knot down. Gives you a good loop, and you can tighten it up around your anchor cleat. The anchor can stay in place. If you get caught on something and need to release this quick, pull that off, and your anchor line let loose, as long as you got a float on it so you can go back and find your anchor later on. I have these triple rod holder kit from Build-A-Crate. Can't remember exactly where I got it from, Kayak or Amazon.com, one of the two. Been a few weeks, I can't remember. But they come as triple rod holders. There's a kit like this, and there's an assembly to it. Basically, to start out, since I'm using a milk crate that's longer than most, it's like 19 inches long. This is going to be the front end of my crate. That's going to be right behind my seat. This goes towards the end of the boat, so I don't know, aft. Another thing is the cavities on this is different than most milk crates on the bottom here. So I've got these wood scraps I had left over to make for a perfect fit in here. I didn't even have to trim them down to size. I painted those up, oil-based primer and paint, and kind of a dark green color. Kind of go with my color scheme. Then I'm putting these together, these rod holders. They give you the two rails or racks, and you attach the center holder first with some of the shorter screws. They give you 6 screws. 4 of them are long, 2 of them are short. The short ones go into the center holder. That holds it together here for you so you can get things lined up in position. Hold it in place while you drill your holes or mark them. Okay, to mark these holes for the 4 that I need to do, I'm lining up my racks here. I've got some of these ribs on the crate, so I've got to work around that. So I've got one here, it's real close to this one, so I just put the screw in here and slide it up there to where it's touching, so I know that's where that one's at. This other one's okay. Now what I'm doing to mark the holes on this, rather than just drilling them right out, I've got this reach marker for marking into deep holes. Got a long skinny tip on it, so this is like a Sharpie, so I can just stick it all the way in there, mark it, reaches quite a ways. Take that screw out. I can mark this one, make sure this bottom rail is straight, got all my things in position. I can mark this one, that one. Take that off. Now, if you can see how I've got my holes marked. What I'll do is, I like to center punch them and then drill them through. So center punch really keeps the drill bit on point a lot better than just trying to let your drill bit wobble around and find its center. Now there's a variety of center punches out there you can use. I've got a couple of kinds that you press on it and it clicks and does an impact on it. This one here is the spring-loaded one. It's got center punch one end and like a nail driver on the other. That's just, you pull it out and let it snap, and that makes your center punch for you. Now these two spacers here, I'm going to have to drill the holes on them, set them in here, and then position and center punch them again for marking the plastic part. Okay, the drill bit that they tell you to use for drilling the holes for these screws is a 3/16 inch bit. And I use a standard drill bit. I don't use a brad point. I only use brad points on drilling wood. For everything else, I use a standard drill bit. So I've got these marked and punched. I can drill them. Let me go ahead and just drill on through this wood piece, since marking where I need to drill anyway. Now since I drilled through these wood pieces as my spacers, I needed to treat these holes to try and protect them from the water. What I may do is just fill them with some silicone as I'm putting the mounting screws in place here. Okay, so I have test fitted the screws into the holes, make sure they got in there and fit correctly. One of the things we do in woodworking all the time is we test our assembly first before we put the glues and screws in. So this works up good, everything lines up perfectly, so I'll take these screws back out, put these tubes on, then put the screws in through those. Now when putting these screws into these holes, even though they're drilled at a 3/16 as per the instructions, it's a bit of a snug fit. They don't just slide right in. Use a screwdriver to drive them through, and they fit snugly, which is probably a good idea. Now to put these tubes on, or these rod holder parts, and I won't bore you with all the steps. I can put a screw in, line that up with the hole there. Might be easiest to use a screwdriver here. Make sure I'm getting on target so I can get all these started here. Okay, it's coming through. This one, kind of a trick to get these in here because it's a long reach, and easiest to probably stick a screwdriver on and get it situated. Okay, get her in the hole. It's got the holes in there. Now what we'll do is get all these screws in, then I'll put on the washers and elastic stop nuts that they have. And these are great so you don't crush your things. You can get it so it stays tight, but you don't crush your parts in the process. Just want to get a snug fit. So I will finish up getting all these screws mounted in here. Alright, so I've got these rod holders attached to the crate. Got all the screws put in, and because the screws partially protruded through here, I'm going to be putting gear and so forth in here in bags. I didn't want to take a chance on any of that stuff kind of getting caught or snagging on those screws that were sticking through. So I took my Dremel tool and cut off the excess that was sticking through, and then smoothed over the ends with that, or you can do it with a file to make sure there's no sharp edges for anything to get caught or torn on. That completes putting the rod holders on. Okay, so I've got my milk crate in here and rod holders. It fits in perfectly. It just fits right inside there. And it's lucky I didn't locate this back further because it wouldn't fit. It gets too narrow here. Far forward as I could, reasonably. That fits pretty well. Well, this wraps up all the kayak modifications that I've made to this kayak to this point. Might be more in the future if it's significant, so share it with you. So if you like this and you got something out of it and you got the inspiration to make some of your own, please give me a like and share it with your family and friends. Also, if you want to see what I may come up with again in the future, please subscribe. So remember, if the women don't find you handsome, at least they should find you handy. Thank you.